Hey, everybody, and welcome to the For Female Founders podcast series, where we are helping women in business thrive, not just survive. I am your host, Shira Bundy, and today we're thrilled to welcome a powerhouse in the world of branding and marketing, Shira Abel. Shira is the founder and CEO of award-winning marketing consultancy, Hunter and Bard. She's also the creator of the Perception Formula, which we're going to be talking about today, and has over 25 years of experience in strategic marketing and change management. She's worked with global brands such as Google, Microsoft, Stanford University, and more. So Shira, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Just to be completely clear on all of that, I have guest lectured at Stanford, and I was a founding mentor at Google Campus and Microsoft Ventures Accelerator, and I have taught at both of those programs. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is it like teaching at that level of a university?
So it was, I've also taught at Berkeley, right? So when I first started at Berkeley, I was a fellow, which is a 1-unit class that I basically turned into a 4-unit class with the amount of work that I gave the students. And it was amazing. It's not that the teaching is so different because I've taught before, right? So what I teach, and I've taught at a university before as a professor. So what I teach is pretty standard in that I've got it all set out. What I found the difference is in the students and the amount of rigor that the students have, and the amount that you could push the students and give blunt feedback without breaking spirits. It's appreciated. It's expected. It's understood that it's a good thing because it's taken with the intent it was given,
which
right?
Is to be helpful and progress.
Which is, yes, right? Because when I teach, it's not for the money. Teaching does in no industry does teaching particularly. I mean, as a speaker, that's one thing, but when you're teaching in a university, especially a state university, the wage is what it is, right? That's not where you're going to be making your income. My income is made from my agency. If anything, it's a loss because I could be making more doing something else with my time. You do it honestly, because of how good it feels.
Yeah,
helping people makes
a big difference.
You make a huge difference in the world, and you get students that may never have had many opportunities before, and you teach them how to help themselves.
With Awin's marketing technology platform, you can easily discover the best partners who connect you with huge audiences of new customers. Understand how your partnerships are performing with intuitive reporting and only pay for the results you need. Start today and grow your own way with Awin. And helping to shape the minds of people who are going to come into the space and leave their impact on the planet.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that you can do that. And I imagine teaching is also a lot like consultancy work, right? You're coming in and you're helping business owners learn, you're helping startups learn, you're helping leaders who have to shape an organization or a team and a high performance team to be able to act on something according to, wherever it is that you're shaping that conversation or those skills. Is that how you kind of associate your teaching with consultancy?
I would say that the mentoring is closer to the consultancy work than the teaching. The teaching, you really kind of have to hold their hand in the beginning because they don't really know. Well, I guess you're doing the same thing with the mentoring. And again, if they're not aware of it, it could be the same thing in the consultancy. So in many ways, yes, there's a strong line between all of them that really tie them together. And it's just a core thing that I've done throughout my career.
I love that very much. And people have come to know you for a variety of different ways. One of the things that come to know you for is the creator of something that you call the Perception Formula. And I'd love to talk about that today. So please tell us a little bit about what is the Perception Formula and how did you come to make this up? A great big thank you to our sponsors, PartnerStack. PartnerStack's ecosystem connects you to the world's largest B2B network for you to earn, connect, and grow.
Okay, I have 25 years plus experience in marketing and sales. I grew my own agency to 7 figures. It's, less than 2% of female business owners have created $1 million+ annual revenue business. So sales is something that I am mildly obsessed with as a marketer. And with all of this, I was looking at how to get people who are stressed out of being transactional and then back to focusing on building relationships. Because in hard times, it's the relationships that get you through. And
Right.
in good times, it's the relationships that build you higher. Either way, being relationship driven and being a giver always gets you more. So how do you get people who are stressed out of the cortisol, out of their head, and into a space where they can focus on the things that matter?
Right.
And all of this also combines together the way I think. I started my career in content and messaging and that side of the house in terms of marketing.
Right.
And so with that being my background, I think about, all right, who are we talking to? What's the benefit to them? But how do they think? Because the golden rule isn't enough. You know, what's going to work really well in Amsterdam in terms of working with somebody will not work in Japan.
Right.
You have a collective culture versus an individualistic one. You've got a blunt culture versus a hint culture. The UK, I've worked with someone over there and I couldn't understand anything that they were saying, and they were speaking English. I understood the words. I didn't understand the meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very, very different in terms of what they're actually saying versus what they mean. So the golden rule isn't enough. You have to serve the people on the other side the way they want to be served.
Right.
You could be insulting somebody without even meaning to. And, you know, with all the best of intentions, misunderstandings undermine trust. So there's that. Even if you meant all of the best things in the world, it could be completely wiped out by somebody not understanding you. And bad news travels much faster than good. You know? Yeah,
So
right?
let's talk about then perception, because what you're saying is in this idea of the perception formula, which is a methodology that you've created,
It's actually a
depending on
framework.
how you make people feel or the understanding or lack of understanding, and then the emotional connection that you have with them is going to create some kind of a perception of you and your brand.
Yes. So it's actually a framework because a methodology is like a set of directions and then a framework is a way of thinking.
Okay.
So this is more of a framework, and perception is equal to heuristics, which are mental shortcuts. A mental shortcut can be anything from Heinz is my favorite ketchup to, you know, I know when so-and-so calls, there's going to be some type of drama that follows. And then you've got hormones, but hormones in this case, because it's a practitioner's formula, it would be the hormones that can be triggered from the outside that marketers often trigger, right? You can't make somebody do something if they don't want to. Like, I don't own a farm. I'm not going to buy farm equipment, right? Okay, so you can't make me just because you have something that seems compelling. Like, not going to happen. But if I'm on the fence, things like different, you know, triggering something, making me laugh or making me feel something in your messaging and in your copy can trigger a reaction. Now, to be able to get an emotion connected to you and a mental shortcut connected to you, you have to have some kind of history. Without history, heuristics, and hormones, there's no perception. They're not thinking of you. You don't exist.
Right.
And without heritage, which is our backgrounds, where we grew up, how we grew up, and the tribes that we self-identify with, right? I'm a marketer. I'm a sales-obsessed marketer. Okay, that's mine. My husband's an engineer. You're not going to sell tests the same way.
Right.
You're not going to sell to a developer the way you would to a marketer. You use the words that you use for a marketer to a developer, and you will give them the ick.
Fair.
Like, they are very, very against being marketed to. So should you take that route, you know you're going to probably repel them and not pull them towards you. So when you think about who's on the other side and you put all of that together, That is how you create the perception formula. And that's the framework of it, right? And when you understand all the different components, it's a lot easier to create a message and a campaign and segmentation that makes sense for who you're targeting.
So how do you figure out who you're targeting when you have a lot of different customer segments?
So that is, it changes per company. I would need more information than just that, right? You can do it in terms of, depends on how you can segment. I mean, you could segment in terms of company size, you could segment in terms of location, you could segment in terms of industry, you could segment, there's a million different ways to segment. You could segment in terms of annual revenue, which is also company size often. It depends. I need way more information to be able to give you that one.
That's totally fair. And you're right there. When you're selling and then when you're doing marketing, there are so many variables that you have to take into consideration. So context is everything. You're right. So let's actually walk through a little bit of a case study. Maybe you could give us an example of a client that you've helped at your company where you've walked them through the perception formula. What did you specifically do with them? And then what was the outcome for them?
Okay, so one of the companies that is using the perception formula currently is an agency in the Midwest, and they are managing customer success for multiple companies at scale. Okay. So what they've done, and what I've worked with the head of that division, what he's done is taken the framework and segmented their customers according to different cultural values and, here are 6: history, heritage, and hormones, right? He segmented them according to how they work together. They've changed their messaging and responses accordingly, and they have found customer satisfaction rates have gone up by 20%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got customer satisfaction improving.
Yes.
Because we are doing way better customer segmentation,
yes.
Which means that we're also doing way better messaging and selling to those segments in a way that's
exactly
an emotional connection to them.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you know which emotions to pull or target? I don't know how else to say that in a different way. Which emotions you want to bring out of potential buyers and customers through your marketing efforts?
So it's more than just marketing efforts, right? It also has to be done through the product. It has to be kind of across the board.
Okay.
Doing it in just one way will only take it so far.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, there's a million different ways to pull things out. One of my favorite examples are the Allstate commercial.
Mm-hmm.
How it starts off with chaos. Starts off with chaos and stress, right? So that gets your attention, which is norepinephrine. And then it may, if it stresses you out because you've experienced it yourself, then you might get a little bit of cortisol. Then it always ends with laughter, which is endorphins. And they are funny, right? Mm-hmm. So, and they have kept these ads for over a decade. This is their formula. And it works, or else they would have changed it by now. And it works because it leaves you feeling good about Allstate. Stress, attention, laughter. It's a great example. And then they have, of course, very personalized service where you build a relationship with the person who is your insurance agent.
Right.
So all of those things together end up bringing you a cohesive feel on how you feel about Allstate, which is a more personal feel. And it's through their consistency, they're able to built their brand. But they started this, over 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's the same guy, the chaos guy. It's the same guy on all of them. Mm-hmm. And it works the exact same way. Different situations, different celebrities will be in the ads, different ridiculousness, but all of them relatable. All of them could happen to you, and all of them end up making you feel good at the end because of the laughter.
So you're basically saying that for companies to be a standout in this very noisy market that we live in today,
Mm-hmm.
brands need to find ways to emotionally engage and connect with their
Yes.
people, their buyers, their consumers.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're suggesting is there's an actual science to it, or there can be a science to it, because there can be a formula applied to the way that people think about reaching and engaging and converting and retaining their buyers online.
Ad agencies have been doing things like this for decades, right? Ogilvy is famous for this. Rory Sutherland gives wonderful examples constantly about different ways of using behavioral science. I come from a more B2B side of business. Mm-hmm. So I use B2C examples because they are the most entertaining, but they can be used in anything. We use them all the time in cybersecurity marketing. Mm-hmm. Because, it's risk assessment. And it's, if you don't do certain things, you risk your business. You don't just risk your business, you risk losing everything. You risk losing your job. You risk you could get through the ringer. The government could come after you if you don't do certain things, right? So there's a lot of risk involved in cybersecurity. So if you're marketing cybersecurity, you are very likely going to use the word risk somewhere in your marketing.
Right, because it's relevant, and you got to be relevant.
And it triggers an action. It triggers more of an action than many other words. Believe me, we've tested them all.
And also, if you're talking about emotions, you're saying that marketers can think about, and creative people can think, and sellers can think about, what is that emotion, and what are the words, what is the position that can be used to trigger the type of emotion that you want people to pay attention to and then kind of turn around. So for example, if you're talking about cybersecurity and you use the word risk, you're immediately triggering the emotion of fear.
Yes.
So now you're tapping into people's fear and being afraid something bad is going to happen.
Exactly.
And therefore it leaves now an open door to say, oh, but don't be afraid, because here's how we're going to fix it for you. And then you can have confidence and be happy.
Exactly. It is very much the same formula as Allstate, as they are dealing in insurance. And cybersecurity is just basically an insurance for all of your cyber information.
Perfect. Well, let's go to talking a little bit about emotional connections and authenticity, because one of the challenges that we have as marketers in the world today, or business owners have in trying to reach new audiences, is how to come across as a real person and not an AI and not a carbon copy of everybody else's marketing efforts. So what suggestions do you have to implement this formula, the perception formula, in a way that allows companies to build a really authentic brand that stands out in the crowd?
Brand is pretty much the only moat that's left, because everyone can be copied so quickly these days. Mm-hmm. So it will be both your look and feel, but it will also be your brand personality. And you need to actually have a personality. You need to have a point of view. You need to make some people love you and give others the ick. That's it. You have to be almost a little controversial, and you need to have it where people have a very strong point of view about you. Because without that, you don't have, what's the way to put this?
The emotional connection to make people do anything.
It's more than that. You're not doing anything to stand out. You don't feel strong enough.
You're indifferent.
Milquetoast. It's like eating cardboard. Nobody wants it. I hate cilantro with an absolute passion. I hate it so much, it's part of my personality. But there are some people who love it so much they couldn't even imagine living a life without it. You need to be cilantro. Some people need to hate you, and some people need to love you. And that is how you end up getting evangelists. Because if nobody really cares either way, why do you exist? Okay, you exist to make money. If you have enough people who care enough to be able to pay you, then fine. But the point is that it's going to be a lot easier if people feel passionately about your product.
I fully appreciate this cilantro analogy, by the way. I think, and I am one of those weird anomalies who actually started hating cilantro until I had it in faux. And now I'm like a huge cilantro fan, and I put it on everything. It's really weird. But Some people can be converted. I don't know.
Then you didn't have the genetic issue. Because I can tell you, there is no amount of cilantro. Oh God, no, I don't even want
I had one open-minded taste bud, and it changed the rest of my eating experience. But I love this analogy. I think being able to say, look, you have to have an opinion, you have to have a stance. As a brand, you have to have a personality, because how do you connect? If relationships are going to be the focal point of business growth, building a brand that has a personality enough that you can build a relationship with your consumers, whether there's a person in the room or not, is part of creating an incredibly powerful brand.
Great example of this is Costco.
Let's talk about it.
So Costco, well, currently, okay, we're not getting into politics. Let's just say that Costco has always prided itself on taking care of its people.
Right.
And it has decided to continue to take care of its people.
Perfect.
And its people have responded in kind. They are happy to work there. They do good work. They get great benefits. They are appreciated and they are appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
And their stock price reflects this. So that would be my example in terms of, and I don't really know anybody who hates Costco, except for the fact that you cannot go in there and spend $10. You're leaving spending $300 to $400. I mean, that's it. There's no, like, who does that?
The only two things I can think of with Costco are it's always busy, it's always a zoo, and you always spend more than you go in to get. Which is pretty great as a business model. If people are constantly spending more money with you than they had originally planned, do that as a business. It's great.
My husband and I have, every time we get to the counter where he's like, all right, how much? And we have a game against each other about who's closer. We're about 50-50.
Oh, okay. You guys have figured it out pretty well. Down to the penny. I love it. Okay, let's talk a little bit about connecting through that noise. I just want to dig into this a little bit further because, again, a lot of people are starting to lean on AI and kind of lazy marketing. I'm gonna call it that, because there are a lot of lazy marketers out there now.
Yes.
Because they can lean on things like AI and VAs and all kinds of stuff. What is your very experienced recommendation around not being tempted to do that, and why?
Okay. I'm not against using AI. I'm against using AI badly.
Okay. Let's talk about why. What's that mean to you?
So using AI badly is using it lazily and not actually training it on anything and not checking it once it does something. You can never take something that AI does and not check it. It makes things up all the time.
Right.
So there's always going to be hallucinations. It is artificial intelligence. It hallucinates. That is what it is, right? It does it right sometimes and it does it wrong a lot. So you have to go through and check every single solitary bit. I don't mind using it for ideation. I use it myself for ideation. You don't see this, but I have a gaming monitor. Mm-hmm. I have a curved gaming monitor, and I will, when I'm thinking about something, have all of the different ones, Claude, Meta, Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity, DeepSeek, Mistral, all of them open. And I will put the same prompt in all of them, and then start ideating back and forth as I see different ideas come out of different things. I'm fine with this. Ideation, it's great. Because if you don't have a team, you can use this to come up with ideas. Using it with a team is even better. Mm-hmm. Using it for writing, if you have not trained it on voice and tone, if you've not trained it on your brand, it's not going to give you anything any good. If you have trained it on your voice and tone, it will give you something okay. It will give you something better than a bad writer. But an actual writer will give you better work every time.
Okay, so let's say we've got people listening and they can't afford a really great writer, and they're not a really great writer themselves, but they have access to the Bards and the Geminis and the Perplexities and the Chat GPTs, and they open them all up there and they put in the same prompt. And with that prompt comes instructions of here's me, here are my values, here's my voice, my brand voice. Can you please give a very specific example of what that would actually look like when you put in the prompt, the description? Because I don't know that people understand how detailed they actually need to be.
Okay, so what you may want to do is actually start it off with, I am building out a brand. Here's what the company does. Ask me a list of questions so that I can create my messaging. Then it'll ask you a little list of questions which you will answer. When you're done with that, and actually say, now ask me a list of questions until you are 99% sure you have what I need to create a successful brand. Add that at the end. So it gives you the questions, you answer all the questions. Then you take all of those answers, open up a new chat. You do not continue this in the same chat. You take all of those answers, you put it into a new chat, and you say, this is my brand. Write out a brand guideline for voice and tone. And it will do that. And then you take it and you change it as you see fit that works for you. Then you can take that, give it back, start a new one again. And it would be, okay, here is my voice and tone guidelines. You are an award-winning writer. It depends on which model you're using. If you're using a model that does reasoning, you do not need to do this. If you do use a model that doesn't use reasoning, you need to do this. There's a lot of details in this. So let's assume that you're using a non-reasoning model. Okay, like 4.0 is not a reasoning model, but 0.3 is a reasoning model in ChatGPT. So let's say you're using a non-reasoning model. You want to give it this. You want to say, you're an award-winning writer. Here is our voice and tone. Take this and turn it into our core messaging, this, that, the other thing. Then you take that information, you edit from there. Or you wait 3 more months and come back to wherever I am and see the thing that I'm actually making right now.
Fair.
I'm working on creating, we've got a startup that we're working on that will help with all of this.
Okay. Well, we'll have to have another conversation then when you can help us make this a lot easier than having a lot of tabs open and trying to go through the process. I do have one clarifying question for you though. You
Sure.
mentioned in this process of help me create this voice and tone, take those things, put it in a new tab.
Yes.
Why do you have to take these pieces and put them into new tabs each time rather than continuing the conversation?
Because the longer you have the conversation, the more likely it is to break.
Okay.
It will break and break so badly. So it's not a new tab. It's a new prompt.
New prompt.
It's a new window of prompts. It could be the same. It's just that it needs to be a whole new prompt. Start again. Ask it a new question.
So let's say now we've got this really good tone. We've got this good voice. We're now starting to establish a personality with our brand.
Yes.
How do we lean on the perception formula as a next step to this baseline that we've now created?
Well, we're going to frame out who we're selling to. We're going to put that into, it could be a prompt, or you could just be thinking about it and mapping it out on a big whiteboard. And you're going to be mapping out, who are they? First, you're going to map out heritage and history. Do they have any, who are they? Where are they based? How do they think? What do they do for a living? How old are they? Ideal customer profile type things. Okay. But also really think about how they think, right? Like I said before, you don't market to a marketer the same way you market to an engineer.
Right.
You don't market the same way to somebody in Japan that you would to somebody in the Netherlands.
Right.
Okay. You're not going to market to American the same way you would market to somebody in England.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different cultures. So you have to think about the cultural differences. And also, you're not going to market to somebody, say, in Boston the same way you would to somebody in LA.
Right.
How does this person think? Where is this person from? What's their background? Are they first gen Americans, second gen, third gen? Yes, these things matter. There's very big differences between them. In
And
terms
which
of,
generation are they in at all?
yeah, okay, yeah, right. And then, and what socioeconomic level, where are they? A lot of subtleties. Is their industry going through a downturn at the moment? So they're going to be totally stressed out. What's going on with them? When you think about that, that informs what mental shortcuts they're going to have and how they're going to feel.
And then from
And
that, you can create your marketing messaging
yes,
that appeals to where they're at in that moment.
Yeah.
I
Where's
gotcha.
their head?
Do you find that there's a particular marketing channels that work better than others these days?
It depends on who you're marketing to. So if you're marketing, okay, if you market to engineers, like much of my life, LinkedIn is pretty much it. They're not, I mean, my husband's not on Facebook. He's not on any social, right? And he's an engineer. And that's kind of common for a lot of engineers, and if you're marketing to somebody in an enterprise who's been in the enterprise for 20 years, they're nowhere.
Not even LinkedIn.
Not even LinkedIn. They don't care.
Right.
So you have to get them at events. Okay. You're only getting them at events. And it depends. Where do they live? Do they live online? Not everybody does. Making that assumption is not, it's not an accurate one. And this is, by the way, true of multi-ages. It's an industry thing. It's not just, oh, well, he's Gen X. Of course he's been in tech his entire life. It's not that. It's a personality thing.
Gotcha. That's actually really interesting to think about. I don't know if a lot of us are marketers or entrepreneurs are thinking about, we're assuming everyone is either on X or LinkedIn or Facebook, but actually, to your point, maybe they're nowhere except in person. They literally still sit and use a Rolodex. They still sit and use their phone, their cell phones, and text people.
If somebody has a Rolodex, they're online because they're in sales. My husband doesn't have a Rolodex.
For all you young people out there, a Rolodex is this thing where you put the card and you flip it to find people's phone numbers. I'm kidding. But I dated myself with that one.
It's all right. I think everybody got it.
Yeah, I think that's something really important to think about, because even as you're thinking about the right messaging and the branding and the personality, you got to think about, if I'm going to be marketing to somebody on LinkedIn, what's the correct voice and tone for this particular platform versus something that might be more casual versus something that might be in person. And now it's your own personality that's representing a brand. So you got to take that into consideration.
Yeah, it's building your personal brand is super important for a lot of different situations. And so keeping that in mind and how you write that out and how you build that out, all these things matter.
Okay, well, we're coming at time, and I'm sure we can schedule another podcast because I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about as well. And I know you have a lot of insight into how men are marketed to versus how women are marketed to, and I would really love to dig into that a little further. But for the sake of today, and actually maybe that'll be my last question so that we can have a tidbit. But here's my question first. For the people who are listening right now, please give us one piece of advice for someone trying to build their personal brand versus someone who's trying to build a business brand.
Okay. You saw my post. I started going down a rabbit hole. I started looking at I spend a lot of time on TikTok as I'm building out my own personal brand. That's where I test my content before I put it on YouTube and on Instagram.
Smart.
And so not everything makes it over to Instagram and YouTube. I go and I test on TikTok because it gives you instant feedback. And the thing about it, once I started doing this, I started recognizing different things that creators were doing that increased their parasocial relationships, right? Like how Mel Robbins goes, "Hi, friend. I know that by you listening to this podcast, you care about yourself and about doing better and about all of, and she does this. And I love her. Okay. So I am not doing this with the tone of shade. I am doing this with the tone of admiration. I love her. I think she's amazing. I think she's doing it for good. So, you know, but she does this, and it is a way to make the listeners feel good. She's building that parasocial relationship. And women that are not on LinkedIn build the parasocial relationship when they are building up their personal brands. Influencers build up that parasocial relationship. They talk about their personal lives. They talk about their hardships. They talk about how they've worked on this, this, and this. Mel Robbins does it all the time, right? She talks I listen to her all the time. Women do this off of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. Now, on LinkedIn, women talk about either they're teaching you something. They don't talk about the hardships unless they're already over, for the most part. I'm talking about the big ones. Yeah. And the ones that are small stay small if they start talking about the negative things while they're still in the middle of it. It seems to give people the ick. Men, on the other hand, can talk about their hardships while they're going through it. They can talk about their wives and their kids and their lives. Women, just usually. Some will talk about their kids. Most don't.
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Most don't. Because the second you remind somebody you have a child and you're female, they don't take the rest of your work seriously. Is that fair? No. Is that reality? Yes. If somebody disagrees with me, show me the proof. This is what my research has shown.
That's fascinating, and actually definitely something that I've never thought of before, of how, again, going back to perception, how women are perceived in their communication and positioning on LinkedIn compared to men, and the freedom of what they're allowed to post that might impact that parasocial relationship they have with other people, whether it's followers, people in their partnership groups, people who are in their network. That's fascinating to think about. If you have any data on that, Shira, that you can share, or anything that you've seen online that we can put in the notes of the show afterwards, I'd actually love to post some things about behavioral pieces according to distribution channel.
I actually wrote a report for myself on this.
Perfect.
So I will find that. It was a while ago, so I will find that. But the other thing that I found is that men have the exact opposite. So while men can post about all the personal on LinkedIn, male influencers tend to either teach, make you laugh, or talk about a subject. Like, they niche down, but you don't really find out about their personal lives at all.
Interesting.
There's a couple of the dad ones, but even the dad ones seem to be very scripted.
So that's an interesting comparison of men versus women on LinkedIn. Going back to the question of one tip that you have for someone who's building a personal brand versus a business brand, what tip do you have for personal versus business branding?
For the personal branding, if you're female, build that parasocial relationship. Have it be very personal. You don't have to use "hey friend," but I follow somebody who ends everything with "love you."
That's awesome.
It could be, she talks into the camera like she's a friend and she ends it with "love you." It could be something like that. It could be, but build that parasocial relationship. Build it where they feel like they're really getting to know you.
Okay. That's on the personal level.
And
by the way, I love saying hello, friend. I call everybody friend because I want everyone to be my friend. So I can appreciate that.
I do "hey folks."
Okay, fair.
Because I talk about the perception formula, I talk about behavior, I talk about business on my platforms. And I feel like it would be weird to go "hey friend" when I don't actually know you. So I'm like, "hey folks."
Fair enough.
So it's a personal. Yeah, you got to do it also for how it works for you.
Okay. Fair.
On LinkedIn, show off your expertise.
Okay.
Teach, show off your expertise. Show examples, talk about this, talk about that, but make it your subject, keep your lane, be consistent, post a lot, and make it long.
Okay, great tips. Okay, and then what about if they're building a business brand?
A business brand, most of them do really especially on LinkedIn, you need the cult of personality. So it's going to be the CEO most likely anyhow.
Mhm.
Or like with Gong, it was Udi. So it just depends. But usually there is a cult of personality for the biggest brands.
I love it. Okay, last question for today, and we'll have to do some more of this because I love it. And before you give your contact information in case anybody wants to contact you. Last question. For the next 3 months, what is one thing people can do to actually stand out in the crowd right now?
The next 3 months, something that somebody can do to stand out in the crowd right now. Okay. Well, video. Video. It's still not common. It takes a while to get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner you start, the better you'll get good, or the sooner you'll get good at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would say video. Video is going to be, and it took me 6 months to do my first video from when I decided I was going to start to do video. Then it took me another month and a half to do it again.
Yes.
Now I do it several times a week, but I still think I have much, much room for improvement. I'm actually probably going to be slowing down and coming off of most of my different platforms so that I can take a step back and really work on starting to script my videos and putting more time and effort into them. And so, yeah, video.
I think that's a wonderful suggestion, and I'll actually second that because, to your point, even though it is difficult to start and sometimes it's difficult to continue, not only is that a way to stand out and people will actually pay attention to it because they know for sure it's not AI. Well, let's call it 90% sure it's not AI, but that's where your personality comes out, right? People can have that opinion. Do I love cilantro or do I not love cilantro? Do I like Sarah Bundy or do I not like Sarah Bundy? That's okay. We're not going to be for everybody, but at least you find your advocates and your ambassadors and the people who do want to learn and follow you guys. So as Shira Abel says, you guys, put yourself out there, get your voice out there. And Shira, we appreciate you being here. Thank you for sharing your perspective and your experience and your formula and your time. And if anybody wants to contact you, what's the best way to reach you?
You can find me through LinkedIn. You can book me through my website, as I am a keynote speaker. So that's shiraabel.com. And honestly, I'm on pretty much every platform, so you can find me everywhere.
Love it. Well, it's nice to see you guys. Thanks for listening in. Shira, thank you for being here. We'll see you on the next show.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the 4 Female Founders podcast series. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe, like, or comment below so we can continue to support women in business by helping them thrive, not just survive. We'll see you on the next show.